I had just finished packing for a week-long fishing trip with my two best buddies. While the idea of the trip excited me, I couldn't vdj shake a sense of unease. My friends and I had been inseparable since elementary school, almost like brothers, always enjoying our time together. But this trip felt different. For years, our wives joined us on all our adventures. In the early days, we even dated each other VJTM's girlfriends before settling down. Initially, Kenny couldn't come because of a crucial business meeting, so his wife Pam decided to stay back. Then, just a couple of days before our departure, Don found out he had a meeting on Friday and had to leave early, so his wife opted to stay home too. When my wife Becky learned that the other wives wouldn't get to Timot be coming, she decided to stay home as well. This wasn't VJ Tim shaping up to be the fun-filled vacation we were used to, and I felt pretty disappointed. Usually we all went together and had a great time. The truth is, I was more upset about missing out on our usual pre-trip intimacy than spending time with my friends. Despite my disappointment, Becky and I had an intense week before the trip, making love to the point of exhaustion, even when I was too tired. This was our usual pre-trip routine, which I looked forward to. For the rest of the year, our sex life was lacking. We had sex maybe twice a week, but it felt mechanical. This was a significant change from when we first got married. Back then, we had sex anytime we found a flat surface or a quiet spot. The decline was gradual but became noticeable about 5 years ago. That summer, we went from making love 5 days a week, sometimes twice a day, to maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Often I wanted to make love, but Becky refused. I was upset at first, but after a few small arguments, I let it go. If she refused long enough, I would handle it myself. On Thursday night, I reached that point again. I was in the office, drinking a beer and taking a break from packing. Becky was upstairs putting the kids to bed. A few minutes later, she came into the living room, sat next to me, took a sip of wine, and looked at me with concern. "Darling," she began, "we need to talk. I know this might make you angry, but please let me finish before you say anything. I will answer all your questions, but I need to get this out now. I have been scared to tell you, but I should have done it months ago. I needed to gather some information first." I felt a pang of fear. Becky looked scared but determined. I realized this was serious. She took a deep breath, another long sip of wine, and continued. "I know our sex life has not been great for a while now. Davy, I love you, but you do not excite me physically anymore. And David, I want to stay married. You are a great father, a wonderful provider, and a good friend, but I need more than you can give me in bed." I felt my anger rising. What did she just say? I knew she did not let me love her much anymore, but what was last week about? I opened my mouth to respond, but Becky raised her hand. "David, you promised to let me talk first." I clenched my jaw and sat back as she continued. "David, I have met someone else who excites me. I cannot live the way we have been. I intend to be with him. I did not want to go behind your back. I still care about you, but you might not get as much as you think. I just do not enjoy being with you physically, and I need to be with him. He makes me feel alive, like when we first got married. I cannot get enough of him." I jumped up and shouted, "You are a cheater! How could you?" Becky stood up and pushed me back into the chair. She stood over me and said, "Shut up! I told you that you would not like what I had to say, but you promised to listen. Now shut up and listen." I sat there in shock as she continued. "I consulted with Don about divorce laws. You cannot afford to divorce me. You will have to accept that I will be with my new man. If you divorce me, I will get at least 2/3 of your salary for alimony and child support. I will get the kids in the house. You will get half the savings and retirement. You will end up struggling financially, and the kids will suffer from a broken home. For your own good and the kids' sake, you must accept this. I still love and respect you, but I cannot continue with our unsatisfactory sex life. Nothing will change for us, honey. I will still be with you physically, but you must understand that I will be gone all night sometimes and might take trips with my new lover." I sat there stunned, anger building as I tried to keep calm. Becky moved back to her chair. I took a deep breath and said, "You are a cheater. I thought I knew you. I thought you loved me, but now you are breaking my heart. How long have you been cheating? Who is this guy?" Becky looked at me angrily and said, "Insulting me not will help, honey. I hope you can get over your grudge and we can live as we have for the past few years. I'm not telling you how long, when, where, or who I am with. It is none of your business. If you try to find out, there will be consequences. I had another lover for a while and got tired of hiding it. You need to hear this from me because I cannot keep living this lie. I am tired of sneaking around and want to spend nights with him. This way, you can watch the kids while I take care of my needs. I will not reveal who it is because I know you try to confront him and you end up hurt or arrested. The kids need you to work and support us. If you discover who he is and do anything, you will be prosecuted. I have made sure of that." Becky's calmness was chilling as she laid out her plan. It was obvious she had been preparing for this moment for a long time, with a response ready for every argument I could make. "Well, I guess I better call the guys and tell them I am not going on this trip. We need to sort this out." I reached for the phone, but Becky grabbed my hand, her eyes locking onto mine. "No, you will go on this trip. The kids will stay with your parents as planned. I am not staying here alone for the next 2 weeks, and I do not want you trying to figure out who I am with. You need this vacation to get used to the idea. If you change your plans, you will regret it. I have people watching. If you try to find out who my lover is or disrupt our lives, I will find out, and you will be punished. Accept my plan, and I will ensure you do not have a miserable life. Things can stay the same if you cooperate." Becky walked over to the desk, took out a thick envelope from the drawer, and handed it to me. "Here, this is a report of all your activities over the past month. Read it, and you will see we know everything. If you try to ruin our plans, I will destroy you. Now I'm going to bed. If you want me tonight, come over. Nothing has to change unless you make waves." I sat there, stunned. Who was this woman? I thought I knew her, but now she seemed like a calculating, deceitful stranger. I watched her walk upstairs, her hips swaying seductively, but it did not affect me at all. I finally opened the envelope and began to read. The detailed report was astonishing, noting things I did not even remember. It must have cost a fortune. Was she connected to someone powerful? According to the report, someone was watching me constantly. They recorded everything, from a stain on my shirt to every time I glanced at a beautiful woman. It took me over 2 hours to read the report, and I realized they even knew things only I should know. Was there a bug in my clothes or wallet? I sat there thinking about how to deal with my cheating wife without losing everything in the settlement. I needed to talk to my friends, but what if one of them was involved with Becky? Planning with them could backfire. Becky came back upstairs and said, "Well, Dave, are you going to bed or just sit there sulking? I'm not waiting all night." She went to our bedroom. I stayed on the sofa in the office, overwhelmed and unable to process everything. Becky woke me up the next morning, angrily making breakfast. "Get up, Dave. You need to get organized and ready for work before the kids notice you didn't sleep in your room last night. When you return in 2 weeks, I expect you to act normally. If you cause a split in the family, I already told you the consequences. I'm willing to meet your needs occasionally, but I expect you to play your part. If you find another woman, I will divorce you." My anger surged. What the hell? You can bully me and expect me to be okay with it, but I don't have the same right. Not that I was going to do it, but why is it okay for you and not for me? Becky smirked and replied, "Damn it, Dave, we both know what you're getting from me now is enough for your needs. If you go out and find something else, it will only be in retaliation. The reason I should end the marriage is that you cannot fulfill your marital responsibilities satisfactorily. If you could give me what I need, I would never end our marriage, and I expect the same from you." I was so furious that I could barely speak, but finally managed to say, "I just can't believe you. Not once did you come to me and ask for more or suggest a different way to make love. You never once asked me to do anything in the bedroom that we don't usually do. How was I supposed to know you wanted or needed something more if you didn't tell me? I always made sure you had climaxes more often than not. How was I supposed to know something was missing when you acted like everything was fine? Becky just stood there looking at me and then said, "Well, if you have to ask this late, you really are in the dark, aren't you? Besides, my dear, what you lack is not quantity, but quality. You never learned how to please me, and I eventually decided you never would. So I started looking elsewhere for what I needed. Now go and get dressed. I'm tired of listening to your whining." I stumbled upstairs and went through my usual morning routine. We had a tense, quiet breakfast. Our son Sean asked what was going on. I started to answer, but Becky cut me off. "Your father is worried about a little problem he has. I'm sure he'll be back to normal after the holidays," she said, giving me a pointed look before returning to her breakfast. When I got to work, I decided to ignore some of Becky's advice and cancel my trip with the guys. I was supposed to leave straight from work and meet them at Dennis's place, where we would all go together. I had a nice SUV, so we planned to load all the gear in it and go from there. Roger was supposed to drive with me, and Don was driving his car because he had to get back into town on Wednesday. I called Roger and told him something had come up and I had to back out. I offered to let him use my truck to move the gear. Roger said, "Oh no, Dave, that's not going to happen. I just got off the phone with Becky and she warned me that you might try to pull this off. She said you've been under a lot of pressure lately and working too much. She already checked with your secretary and confirmed you have nothing important on your schedule. I promised her IVDJTMDD make sure you went on this trip. If I have to drag you there myself, I will. UVJTMDAR coming with us and UVJJTMRI going to have fun," Roger insisted. I started to protest and flat out refuse, but then a wave of anxiety hit me. What if it was Roger? But Becky said she was going away this weekend and Roger was supposed to come with me. Then again, Kenny stayed home and will arrive midweek. Could it be him or someone else? Damn it, I was stuck. I needed to think and come up with a plan. I thought about buying a CCTV system, but how? From the report I read, I realized Becky and her friends were tracking my credit card purchases and phone calls. They even tracked my cash withdrawals from the bank. They could discover unusual expenses overnight. I was sitting at my desk, lost in thought, when Becky called me. As soon as I picked up the phone, she started berating me. "David, I told you to go on your trip. ITVDGJTMA's not in your best interest to try and find out who IVJTM's seeing. Roger just called me and said you tried to back out. This is your last warning. Do not contact me or UVJTM will be trash and UVJTM'll never see your children again. Am I clear?" She slammed the phone down, leaving me in shock. Roger had turned me in. Damn, did that mean he was involved or was he just looking out for me? Come to think of it, none of my old friends seemed as close to me as they did a few years ago. It felt like they were more Becky's friends now. Could this be real? Not all of them, surely. I decided to go on the trip and met the guys at Denny VJTM's. We had dinner, and while they were all having a good time, I sat there moping. Finally, Don asked me what was going on. I looked at him for a moment and said, "Becky has some damn stupid idea in her head, and I don't have time to know how to deal with it. DTVJTM's hard for me to even believe Chef DJTM's telling the truth, but if she is, my marriage is over." Roger looked at Don and said, "Damn it, Don, you know how Becky is. She called me this morning and said her husband is trying to cancel our little trip and wants to make sure he goes. She said Hev GA/TM's been upset and difficult to live with for the past few days, and he really needs this vacation to get his head in order. I promised her that we would make sure he came with us and had a good time." Don said, "Yes, IVDJTM, Vav, noticed myself that Heavy DJTM's been a little out of sorts the last few months. He doesn't tempty joke or hang out with us like he used to. IVJJTM, sure he needs a little attitude adjustment, and we can certainly give him that. I have beer and his favorite whiskey in the car." He turned to me and continued, "Damn it, buddy, nothing has ever stood between us and our cabin trips before. Hell, I know the ladies 1VJ to be there this time, but that just means we can drink more and lie more." I followed them out the door, and we headed to the stream where we planned to fish. It was only a 2-hour drive, so we got there just in time for a good drink before bed. The next morning, both guys insisted on fishing, and we hit the road. I had actually forgotten some of the recent stress, but by the time we got back to the cabin, thoughts of Becky crept back in. I couldn't VJJ Temmet believe she meant what she said, but instead of figuring out what I needed to do, I let the guys talk me into having another drink with them. After dinner, as we sat sipping drinks, Don looked at me and asked, "Okay, Dave, you look like you lost your best friend, and I know you haven't VJTMT because I VDJTMEM still here. What VDJTMs got you so upset?" I decided that if I didn't VJMTT talk to someone I trusted, I VJTMD go crazy. I knew I could trust these guys. We've DJTM'd been best friends since grade school. I told Don and Roger about the last few months, the last 3 years of my marriage, and my fading sex life. Then I shared Becky VJTM's shocking revelation from Thursday night. After I finished, Don looked at me and said, "Damn it, Dave, are you sure that VDJTM's what Becky said?" I can't VJTM to believe she would say or even think something like that. We've DJTM, known her for years, and Chev DJTM's always been the kindest, most loving woman. Yes, me too, but that VJTM's exactly what she said. As far as I remember, that VDJTM's what she said. Is it really true? Don leaned back in his chair and said, "Well, Dave, I can VDJTM tell you what the divorce will be like if that VDJTM's what you VJTM are asking, but she has a point. If she does what she says she wants to do, you really need to decide how you VJTM are going to handle it. If Chev DJTM's acting distant, you need to consider if breaking up the family and causing emotional damage to the children is worth it. The courts usually side with the mother in custody cases, unless Chev DJTM's proven unfit. You VJTM lose the kids. Chev DJTM's right that you VJTM will have to support the kids until they've VJTM adults, and you VJTM will also be expected to help with college. Since she doesn't VJTMT work, you VJTMD have to pay alimony until she remarries. You VJTM will either lose the house to her or have to sell it and give her half the money. You VJTM will have to give her at least half of your savings and retirement account, so yes, Chev JTM's mostly right. Their VJTM's a formula for calculating child support, and ITVJTM's usually not in favor of the supporting parent. The court VDDTM's aim is to ensure the children receive excellent support. So you VJTML probably end up losing at least 3/4 of your earnings to child support. You VJTMD also be on the hook for their medical care. I sat there in shock, hearing my lawyer friend confirm my worst fears. It was much worse than Becky VDDTM's threats of financial ruin if I didn't VJTMT accept her affair. "I need to know who Chev DJTM's with," I said, frustration bubbling up. "She won doesn't tell me, and I need to find out. When I do, I VJML make sure Chev JTM's no longer with him." "Dave, as your friend I get it, but as a lawyer I have to advise you not to pursue this. If I hear that one of Becky VJTM's lovers has been harmed, I VDJTML be obligated to report it. My advice is to accept the situation and move on with your life. Maybe if she cheats, Chev JTM'll eventually change her mind. Either way, you VJTMD be better off maintaining the status quo." "Don, I can VDJTMT believe you VJJTM are saying this. How would you feel if Shelley did something like this and threatened you? Are you telling me you VJTMD just accept her betrayal like Becky is asking me to?" Don looked pensive and replied, "No, I VDJTMD be as upset as you are, but I know Shelley wouldn't VJTM do something like that. Chev JTM's completely in love with me and knows I VDTM the best lover she could ever have. I make a great living, and she wouldn't DJTMD risk losing access to money or hurting our family. Buddy, you need to accept your situation. If Becky has someone monitoring you as closely as you say based on that report, you VDJTM already screwed if you try to find out who Chev DJTM is with. Chev JTML find out and retaliate. From what you VJTMVV told me, Chev DJTM's got you so worked up that she might even know about this conversation. She knew where we were going, didn't VJ Timothy she? Damn, I hadn't VJ Timothy thought of that. Now I have something to worry about. I was puzzled by the smirk Roger had throughout the discussion and the strangely content look on Don VJ TM's face. I couldn't be JJ Tim to believe my friends were so unfazed by Becky VDJTM's betrayal. Finally, I said, well, to hell with it. Let VVDJTMs have another drink. The next morning, I woke up before my friends. Wanting to be alone, I took my fishing gear and walked upstream to my favorite spot. Just as I was about to start fishing, my cell phone rang. I always carried it with me, but there were many spots here where the signal was weak. I was surprised to get a signal. Seeing Becky VJTM's name, I decided not to answer. As soon as she left a message, I listened to it. Her words stunned me. Well, honey, my sources tell me you got some great advice from Don last night. I hope you VJML follow it. I love you, and you VJTM are too good a provider and father to lose. But if you do something crazy, I VJ let you go and still take care of the kids. Now have some fun. I stared at the phone in disbelief. There was no cell service at the cabin and no landline. So how did she know about my conversation with the guys? Damn, there must be a bug in my equipment and someone intercepted it during transmission. I needed to find it later. I didn't VDGTMT notice Roger and Don standing at the edge of the forest watching me. They grinned and gave each other a thumbs up before slipping back into the woods, heading toward the cabin. Roger turned to Don and said, "Do you think this will solve the problem, or should we keep the pressure on for a while longer?" "I think we need to keep detailed reports for a month or two and keep telling him to just accept it. Things are going well for us, and if we can convince him to let her keep seeing us, we VJJT will be miles ahead. Can you imagine how much better it will be to sleep with her without the current time restrictions? We've DJTMV've got her so excited about sex that Chev DJTM's willing to do whatever we tell her to get more. If we play this right, he can tell our wives about the problem, and we can say we VJTM'd are helping him figure things out. This will be a perfect cover." I fished until almost noon, but my heart wasn't VJTMT in it. I spent most of the time thinking about my marriage and trying to figure out who Becky was involved with. I also wanted to find a way to end it and get revenge. However, I knew I couldn't VDJTMT do anything until I knew who, when, where, and why if possible. On Friday evening, Becky told her 3 friends they were almost at the cabin. She turned to the man with her. She had been passionate all day and was eager for what was to come. She said, "Oh God, IVJTMVV needed this for so long. I can't wait for the others to arrive. Shouldn't VJTM to Don be here early on Wednesday?" "Yeah, baby. Then you VJM will have both of us for 2 whole nights before I have to go help babysit your loving hubby." "Oh God, IVJTM will be so glad when all 3 of us can get together at the same time. I just hate being with only 1 or 2 of you at a time. After what you did to me, Dave will never satisfy me again. Do you think we've DJTMV taken care of everything? I love him to death, and Hev DJTM is a great provider and father. I don't VJTMT want to lose him. Yes, I think we've JTMV, you've got it under control. Yeah, I just hope Dave doesn't VJTMT start talking to our wives and causing problems. Everything has been good for us for the last 3 years. I really think we should have been content with the way things were instead of pushing for more," Don admitted. "The idea of having you all night or on a long trip sounds great, but not sure we can push Dave this hard. We might have created a bigger problem than we can handle." "Well, the dirt we dug up on him should make him back off," Roger replied. "I just wish he wasn't VDJTMT so damn honest and noble. ITVJTM's incredible we couldn't VTMT find anything shady in his actions. How could a man run his own business and not exploit the situation to make a little extra money?" "Becky, are you still monitoring his finances like we discussed?" Don asked. "Yes, IVDJTMV managed to get the bank to set limits on his cash withdrawals, but I can VDTMTT stop him from writing checks. At least we can track them if he does. I regret insisting he hire office help so I could stay home with the kids, Becky giggled. Of course, if I hadn't VJ/Tempted arranged to stay home, we wouldn't VJ/Tempted be having as much fun as we are now, would we? Spending a couple of evenings a month with you was nice, but staying home means we can have sex more often now, thanks to this plan. Dave was brooding by the river. His friends tried to cheer him up, but it was no use. They got him drunk on Tuesday night, and after he passed out, Don and Roger went out to the porch to talk. IVJATM starting to worry about Dave, Roger said. WVJTMV been talking to him for days, and Hev DJJTM's getting more determined to leave Becky and get revenge on her lover. Hev DJTM's about to explode. How are we going to control this? It all sounded so simple when we planned to control him and get her to ourselves more often. What if he finds out and tells our wives? Calm down, Roger. I can manage it in the divorce and make her look like a saint. Worst case, she divorces him. So what? We did this because she wanted to keep the fool. I enjoy having sex with her while Chev DJTM is married, but it would be almost as fun if she wasn't VTM at. We just have to ensure he and our wives Don VDJTM find out. We might need to use some force, but that can wait, Don said. Dave couldn't VDTM hear them clearly, but he knew they were upset that he hadn't VJTMT accepted Becky VJTM's infidelity. They thought they'd JTMD have to convince him to tolerate it. Now he was furious at both her and them. Before falling asleep again, he decided to handle this on his own. Over the next few days, Dave distanced himself from his friends. Roger and Kenny got worried when all he said was, IVDTM going to find out who ChevGTM's cheating with and they'd pay. Finally, the day to go home arrived. Roger rode with Dave and they drove in silence. Kenny called Don once they had cell service. Don and Becky were in Dave VJTM's living room listening to Kenny VJTM's report. Hev JTM's angrier and more determined to make us pay than ever. I suggest we cool it until he calms down. If he catches us, it could get ugly, Kenny said. Becky sat there in shock, tears streaming down her face. Don, red with anger, clenched his jaw. After talking to Kenny for another minute, he hung up and turned to Becky, pulling her close to calm her. Becky, Don VDTM, teet worry, I didn't JTMD want to go hard unless necessary, but it looks like we have no choice. See how this weekend goes and let me know on Sunday night. If Hev JTM's going to cause trouble, we VJTM'll file a report on Monday. I can freeze all your accounts and get court approval to freeze business accounts. We've DATM'll convince the judge he could ruin you if we Don VATMT take control. Dave walked into his house late Friday night and saw Becky in the living room. Her eyes were red from crying, but she looked relaxed, as if after a long session of sex. She was wearing one of his shirts, and nothing else. Passing through the room, he saw evidence of her infidelity. Trembling with rage, he glared at Becky and walked past her without a word. She followed him into their bedroom, trying to join him in the shower. He pushed her out, saying, "Get out of here. I hope to sort this out. But after seeing you tonight, I know that VJTMM's impossible. You may destroy me, but IVJTM'll get my revenge on you and your lover." After cleaning up, Dave quickly gathered his belongings. Dave gathered up everything he could fit into his truck, moving in and out of the house while hearing Becky talking on the phone. One of his last attempts was to transfer money from their joint accounts on the computer, but he found himself locked out. The password had been changed. Clenching his jaw in anger, he turned to see Becky watching him. "I was hoping you VJTMD come to your senses and it wouldn't VDWMT come to this. You know you VJTM are making a big mistake, right? I love you more than any man I VJTMV ever known. I don't VJTMT want to lose you. If you keep this up, you VJTM all lose the business and everything WevTMV worked for. Just so you know, I hired Don as my lawyer. I just spoke to him and told him how you behaved. He will contact you." Dave was stunned. He knew Don was her friend too, but damn, he was his friend and had been his lawyer since he started practicing. He couldn't VJTMT believe Don could do this to him. Dave left the house and drove straight to his office and warehouse complex, planning to live in his office for a while. On the way, he stopped at the gate and spoke with the guard. "I have some problems with my wife. She and her lover have threatened me. I need you to call additional security and keep unauthorized persons away from any part of this property." Around 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, Dave was leaving the complex to get breakfast when he was stopped at the gate. A man approached him, confirmed his identity, and handed him an envelope saying, "You have been served." When Dave opened it, he saw a restraining order stating he could not come within 100 meters of his wife, children, or their place of residence. It also included an order requiring court approval for any expenses from his personal or business accounts to prevent him from draining the company in anticipation of the divorce case, which would be filed next Monday. After breakfast, Dave went to his assistant VDJ ATM's house. When she opened the door, she said, "Dave, you look terrible. What happened?" "I need to talk. I need help, and you've Gemma the only person I can trust. Sorry to bother you on the weekend, but I have a problem, and I have no idea who I can trust or talk to." She stepped back and held the door open. "Come in, Dave. Would you like some coffee?" Dave followed her into the kitchen, where he saw her husband Tad sitting at the table. It looked like he had interrupted their brunch, as there were still plates of eggs on the table. "IVDA, sorry. I think I better leave." Tad looked at Dave and said, "You look awful, Dave. Sit down and talk to us." Slowly, Dave told them everything that had happened in his life over the past 2 weeks. "I just don't know what to do or how to even help myself. My so-called best friends spent the last 2 weeks trying to convince me to let Becky have an affair. They say, based on what she said, this has been going on for years, and I didn't notice. So why should I rock the boat? Don, my ex-best friend, is working with Becky as her lawyer and getting me into legal trouble. I can VJJTMD to even spend money without court permission until at least Monday. All my credit cards were declined when I tried to pay for breakfast." Gertrude leaned back in her chair and said, "Dave, I can't believe Becky would do this to you." She turned to her husband. "If you need somewhere to stay, you can use one of our spare rooms. Tad, can we help him with some money too?" Tad nodded affirmatively. Dave sat at the table, leaning on his elbows, head down. He had never felt so angry, helpless, and determined to make someone pay. Tad thought for a moment, then said, "If what you say is true, you need serious help. I just hope you don't have a bug on you somewhere." His eyes narrowed. "Come with me, Dave." They went down to the basement. "Dave, take off your clothes right now and give them to me. There VGTM's a shower over there. IVDATM, I'll bring you some of my clothes. After you clean up, we've DJTML talk. I don't think our house is bugged, but they could be watching and have a listening device that could pick up conversations." Dave changed into Tad VDJTM's old sweatpants. The three of them then went to the cement storm shelter under the stairs. He felt foolish when he started talking, and Tad and Gertrude stopped him. They spent the next hour taking notes and planning their actions. After they had planned for every contingency, Tad left to begin contacting people who could help Dave. They decided Dave would have minimal contact with these people, and Tad and Gertrude would lend him the money he needed to start the investigation. Becky VDJTM's activities would be monitored, as well as David JTM's 3 friends. On Sunday, Dave, Tad, and Gertrude had lunch together while Becky, Don, Kenny, and Roger had a meeting at her house. After exhausting themselves sexually, they sat down to recover. "IVDJTMM worried about all this," Roger said. "IVJTMM not sure we should be here today at all. What if Dave catches us? I think we should cool it for a while until we get it under control. Why the hell were we even trying to do this to him? We've been planning this for over 3 years, and you all had to work hard to get him to accept being betrayed just so we could have more of Becky. I'm afraid this will all blow up in our faces." "Calm down, Roger," Don said, exasperated. "We did this because Becky wanted to keep him around. I enjoy having sex with her while Chef DDTM's married, but it would be almost as fun if she wasn't VDTMT. We just have to ensure he and our wives, Don VJTM, find out. We might need to use some force, but that can wait." Meanwhile, Dave was still grappling with his anger and betrayal. He had never felt so cornered, but the idea of revenge fueled him. As the days went by, he grew increasingly distant from his friends. Roger and Kenny noticed the change and grew concerned when all he would say was, "AVJ team, I'm going to find out who Chef DATM is cheating with, and they've JTM dar going to pay." The day finally came when they had to return home. Roger rode with Dave and the truck was silent. Kenny drove his car and, once in an area with good cell service, called Don. Don and Becky were in Dave DJ TMM's living room listening to Kenny report. Hev DJ TM's angrier and more determined to make us pay than ever. I don't legitimate know what to do, but I suggest we cool it until he calms down. If he catches us, it could get ugly, Kenny said. Becky sat in shock, tears streaming down her face. Don, his jaw clenched and face red with anger, turned to Becky after they hung up. He pulled her close to calm her down. "Becky, Don vade TMT worry. I didn't TMT want to go hard unless necessary, but it looks like we have no choice. See how this weekend goes and let me know on Sunday night. If Hev VJTM's going to cause trouble, Wev DJTML file a report on Monday. I can freeze all your accounts and get court approval to freeze business accounts. Wev DJTML convince the judge he could ruin you if we don't Vage TMT take control." Dave walked into his house late Friday night and saw Becky in the living room. Her eyes were red from crying, but she looked relaxed, like after a long session of sex. She was wearing one of his shirts and nothing else. Passing through the room, he saw evidence of her infidelity. Trembling with rage, he glared at Becky and walked past her without a word. She followed him into their bedroom, trying to join him in the shower. He pushed her out, saying, "Get out of here. I hope to sort this out, but after seeing you tonight, I know that VJTM's impossible. You may destroy me, but IVG will get my revenge on you and your lover." After cleaning up, Dave quickly gathered his belongings and left, determined to find a way to turn the tide against Becky and those who betrayed him. "I really don't it like that. He spent so much time with his secretary and her husband yesterday," Don said, worried. "Our guy didn't JMT hear a sound from the house. Then they stayed to watch Dave instead of following him. What if they helped him?" "Oh, stop whining," Roger retorted. "We have Dave completely tied up. He can VDJ get enough money to do anything, and we have surveillance on him. We VJT will know what Hev DJ TM's doing before he does it. Hev DJ TM's probably sitting with his secretary and her husband right now crying into his coffee. If he leaves, we VJTM will get a call before he VDJTM's even out of the block. He can VJTMT make a call from her phone or his without us knowing what Hev DJTM's saying." They resumed their carnal activities, unaware of the man pointing a camera and microphone through the window at them. On Monday morning, Dave began his search for a lawyer. He spoke to several and made appointments with two. He felt lost without Don, who had been his lawyer for years but was now representing Becky. He eventually decided to hire Sally Hawk, who made a great impression during the interview and came highly recommended. The first thing they did was start proceedings to unfreeze his business accounts and secure enough money for him to live on. They also hired a private firm to spy on Becky, allowing wiretapping and video surveillance. Sally also initiated divorce proceedings on charges of infidelity. That evening, Tad gave Dave the footage he had shot the day before. Naturally, Dave was heartbroken and furious upon discovering that Becky was involved with all three of his friends. At least now he knew who his enemies were. The next morning he went to his office and made 5 copies of the CD. He sent one to each of his friends' wives, his lawyer, and kept one for himself, putting the original in a safe deposit box. He also posted the videos on several amateur adult sites on the internet, using the real names of all participants. He set up the site as a pay-per-view, with money transferred to a bank account in the Cayman Islands. He smirked, knowing Don had given him the key to his office, and Dave had set up the site from there so that, when tracked, good old Don would take the blame. Several of Becky's friends and family members received photos of her in action via email. This was all done from the free computers in the college library, so it couldn't VDJ TMMT be traced back to him. He had thought about using Don VJTM's office for that too, but realized it would look suspicious. Using the college computers was easy VJJ. He had done it many times and never been caught. The college computers were meant for students, requiring a student ID and password to log in. Almost every time he entered the library or computer lab, he found a computer left on, using someone else's VJTM's login. Even if traced back to the college, it would lead to that student, not him. The local college didn't VDJ Tim to use security cameras, so he didn't VDJ Tim worry about being photographed. Dave had a lot of fun on Wednesday, answering phone calls from people who had seen the video. Later that evening, Becky called him in tears. "How could you do this? I thought you loved me. I told you it was just sex because you couldn't tempt give me what I needed. How could you ruin my life like that?" Dave laughed and said, "Rebecca, I didn't ruin your life, you did. I've just delivering the retribution I promised if you went through with your plans. I'm sure you have been cheating on me for a while. Now that I think about it, there were many times one of the guys was convinced I was VJTM'd home and came back late. Over the past few years, I've seen too many things that didn't JTM'd add up then, but make sense now. By the time I've JTM'd done with you and these idiots, you VJTM'll regret the day you did this." Later that day, Dave received a call from his sister, Becky. "Poor idiot. You finally found out about your perfect wife. I VTM guessing you sent that damn video. Now I think she and I can share the boys. I didn't pretend but know she was screwing them until I got this." He felt a shiver when she hung up, hearing her maniacal laughter. Don also called, and as soon as Dave answered, started yelling. Dave let him rant for almost 15 minutes. Don threatened both physical and legal harm. The best part of his tirade was, "You've Jimmer a freaking idiot. By the time IVDTMM done with you, you've GTML regret messing with me. IVDJTMM going to have your tramp wife anytime I want and will have most of your money too. If you had just done what I told you, you VJTM'd still have a family, money, and a life. Now, after I break you, IVJTM, I'll make the boys freak you. IVJTM's been screwing this little tramp since high school, and IVJTM will keep screwing her long after you've VJTM her history. You son of a bitch, I hope you like living in the ghetto because that VDJTMM's where you VJTM'll end up when IVJTMM done with you. IVDJTMM going to sue you for everything and blow your money defending myself against it." Subsequent calls from Becky VJTM's parents were sad. Her mother cried, asking, "Dave, how could you do this to Becky? I know it looks like she hurt you terribly, but spreading pictures of her everywhere was too vindictive. Couldn't you have handled this more civilly?" By the time Dave decided to go home for the evening, he was exhausted from the emotional turmoil, but felt a grim satisfaction in the chaos he had unleashed. Dave was quite satisfied with his actions for the day. He was confident that the computerized answering system installed by his company would prove its worth based on the recordings collected that day alone. When he had initially bought it, he was wary as his then lawyer and friend, Don, had advised him to get it set up through their carrier. As soon as the phone rang, the computer answered, issuing an alert as the recorders began to work. An alert was sent to all subscribers before their call could be forwarded, stating, "Thank you for calling U.S. Central Inventory Logistics and Security. All phone calls are recorded for later use. If you do not want your call to be recorded, please hang up now. If you do not hang up and know your extension number, enter it after the beep. If you don't know the extension, press 0 and an operator will assist you." It turned out that Don, in his rage, didn't VDDJTMT consider or simply ignored the warning. Consequently, all his threats and boasts were recorded after the alert, which he had insisted the telecom operator include in the system. Dave thought this was poetic justice. Unfortunately, everyone in Becky's group stopped seeing her after the cases were filed. Luckily, Ted's friend had captured the video and audio clips that first Saturday, as none of the private investigators caught anything incriminating on video afterward. They did record a few incriminating phone calls, but most were too ambiguous to be of much use. One of Sally's first actions was to send information about Don to the state bar. His license to practice law was immediately suspended, and pending the outcome of the divorce proceedings and litigation, he was disbarred for life due to his threats and unethical behavior. Dave's divorce was granted, and Becky came out of it poorly. She received only about 25% of the family property, while Dave retained control of his company. Dave was awarded custody of the children, largely due to a small photo that had not been immediately noticed. While Ted's friend was taking pictures of Becky and the guys in the living room, he accidentally captured another observer. His perspective included not only the orgy, but also Dave's house layout, showing a little face peering into the house from the backyard. Dave's 8-year-old daughter had watched her mother DJ debauchery through the patio door. The judge, upon seeing this photo, awarded Dave full custody of the children. Dave's lawsuits against Don were also highly successful. He won $1.3 million in damages for violating attorney-client privilege and for taking on Becky as a client while acting as Dave's lawyer. Don was also censured for having a physical relationship with his client and other ethical violations, which resulted in additional fines paid to the state. By the time Dave was done with Don was nearly bankrupt. His wife Shelley had managed to clean out most of their remaining family assets during their divorce. Kenny and Pam divorced, with Pam receiving most of his assets. To everyone VJTMM's surprise, Roger and Trixie did not divorce. It turned out she had previously succumbed to the seduction of 3 friends and was a willing participant in their debauchery. Unfortunately, Roger no longer liked his friends using Trixie for their pleasure. When they were kicked out of the house, Don and Kenny moved in with Roger. Many nights they monopolized Trixie, and Roger didn't VDJJ get the attention he felt he deserved. One evening, Roger attacked Don and Kenny. They beat him so severely that he ended up in the hospital. Charges were brought against Don and Kenny, and they were convicted and sent to prison for a year. This time, Roger and Trixie divorced. Almost a year after his affairs had been settled, Dave sat in his office discussing the latest article about Don, Kenny, and Roger fighting over Trixie with Gertrude. She asked, "Dave, have you ever talked to Rebecca? I know she can visit the children under court supervision." Dave looked at her and said, "No, we only talk when it's necessary and only about the kids. I have no desire to talk to her, and if I could, I would never see or hear from her again. I'm just curious. For years I thought you two were the perfect match. Then, well, I just always wondered why she did it. I can understand why a woman who loves her husband would do what she did." Dave sat quietly for a moment, feeling his stomach tighten. He clenched his jaw and bit his upper lip. Then he opened the bottom drawer of his desk, pulled out a folder, and passed it across the table to Gertrude. Dave looked at the letter and said, "I don't even know why I kept this letter or agreed to read it. Do you remember about 7 months ago when Becky VJTMM's mother came into the office crying? She handed me this letter and insisted I read it before she left." Gertrude opened the folder and began to read. "My dear David, I know you think I no longer have the right to call you my dearest, but you are still the only man I love. I know I have lost you forever, but I need to bare my soul to you. I know I caused you immense pain, but that was never my intention. I didn't VJTM to mean to hurt you at all. I never intended to cheat on you, but I did. I know you knew that I made love to all 3 of our friends when we were dating in high school. I know that you also made love to all 3 girls. It never bothered any of us. The first time I cheated on you was similar. You had to work on a major case the weekend Don and Shelley were throwing a Valentine's Day party on our 9th anniversary. I was so lonely and drank too much. I know it VJTM's not an excuse, but I did it. Shelley made Don drive me home in our car. Kenny followed to take Don home while the others helped clean up. On the way home, Don kept reminding me of the time he and Kenny both made love to me at the same time. I got very excited. He and Kenny took me inside and insisted on undressing me and putting me to bed. While doing this, Don reminded Kenny of another night when you had to work and left me alone. They started kissing me and arousing me. I knew it was wrong, and at first I tried to get them to stop. They didn't want to. One would stop, then the other would start kissing and touching me. I felt so hot listening to their conversation and remembering how good it was with two men. Finally, they pushed me back onto the bed, and we made love for almost an hour. I have to admit, I liked it. I had more climaxes than I ever had with you. I knew it was because there were two of them, and they never let me rest, but they were still very good. A couple of days later, Dawn and Roger came over when they heard you were out of town for work. I tried not to let them in, but they begged, and I finally did. I knew it was wrong, but it felt so good. We spent the evening in bed again. Since then, at least once a month, I had one, two, and sometimes all three if they managed to escape, and you were unlikely to catch us. I know you noticed that on weekends and holidays we spent together, some of the boys and I would disappear for a long time. We were somewhere making love. I don't know how many times we almost got caught. The fear of getting caught was so thrilling for all of us. We started talking and wishing we didn't have to rush and worry about getting caught. Don finally came up with the idea I gave you about letting me cheat. He told me what could happen if you divorced me. I was sure that you loved me enough to let me cheat, and I was also sure you would never risk losing your children or livelihood, so I agreed to his plan. I am very, very sorry, my love, that I did this to you and our family, but I was weak. I became addicted to the amazing lovemaking these three men could give me. Please, my dear, forgive me for being so weak. Yours forever, Becky. After reading the letter, Gertrude looked up, her eyes watering but her jaw clenched. Dave, I really think she loves you more than anything. I know Shave DD is hurting, but she was almost as much a victim as you. I think Don was a predator. We've both heard rumors about him over the years. I wouldn't be surprised if he purposely got her drunk that first night. I don't know a single decent person who would take advantage of her like that. Yes, I know, Gertie, but I'm not sure she told me the whole truth. She always seemed more attentive to Don than I liked. I laughed it off, but a few times we fought after parties because I thought she was too friendly and took too many liberties with him. But I never called her or him out on anything to avoid a big fight. I have to admit, after Don VGJTM's phone call, when I finally caught them thanks to you and Ted, I had enough doubts to do a DNA test on the kids. You can VDATMTT imagine how relieved I was when the test results showed I was their father. Anyway, I believe she thinks she loves me, but I don't think it VDJTM's real love. It was more of a hobby, perhaps a deep sympathy. It was easy to live with me. I was a good provider and father. Now I think I was the last choice, and we got married because, well, I don't know why she married me. I loved her deeply, but I don't think she felt the same. I think that VJTM's why she cheated and continued to do it. She was selfish and only thought about her pleasure, her needs and desires. I VJTM used to it now. If only I could find a good replacement.